Thank you, President, and welcome Vice President and Commissioner Moscovici to our Econ meeting. And it's fair to say a lot of progress has been made in the last number of years on debt and deficit reduction across the European Union. We should recognise that. I have some questions on my own country in Ireland, where I think exceptional progress has been made over the past number of years. My first one relates to the threat of Brexit and a hard Brexit and how that might affect the Irish economy. I know in the draft budgetary paper, the DBP that was produced by Ireland, it did refer to this issue. And I'm asking the question about what would an asymmetric shock have to look like in terms of a reduction in Irish growth, in terms of the fiscal position. What would an asymmetric shock look like? Because I think we have to be prepared for the worst case scenario in a circumstance where the negotiations are not going well. My second remark is on the question of the output gap, which I know Commissioner Moscovici has referred to consistently. And this relates to the four-year averaging process, which can be distorted from one year to the next. And my question is really, are the Commission in a position to bring forward new proposals in this area which would reflect the reality of the output gap, particularly for Member States like my own, but also other countries which have changes in population and growth as a consequence of a very industrialised and output-orientated economy, an export-orientated economy. I know in a recent letter he sent to me that the long-standing Council working group that discusses the methodology for calculating potential output and output gap was looking into this question, and that the Commission will participate in this. Could you brief us on where things stand in that area? And my third question relates to post-programme surveillance missions to Dublin. My understanding is it's not that we don't want to see Commissioner Moscovici in Dublin. We very much enjoy every time he comes to Dublin. He is very welcome. But am I right in saying that we need to get to the end of post-programme surveillance? The programme is over, post-programme is over. Why are we continually getting post-programme surveillance in a circumstance where next year we will hit our MTO, where we will bring a balanced budget? Is that going to be the end of the post-programme surveillance? It's not a personal issue, it's purely on the basis of continuing surveillance. And my final remark relates to investment gap. In my own country, down about 20%. Do we need to see greater flexibility for those Member States which have gone through a programme because of the scale of reduction in investment? What is the view of the Commission when it comes to a greater flexibility on investment in those Member States which have seen an enormous reduction in public and private investment because of the scale of the crisis? Thank you very much, President.
Thank you for those questions. So first, on Irish economy, indeed we see that Irish economy is performing quite strongly. So 4.8% growth this year, forecasted 3.9% next year. So this take into account, I would say, state of play of Brexit negotiations as they are now. Of course, we monitor the situation closely, but as you know, the no-deal scenario is not the one for which we are aiming. As the European Commission, we are clearly aiming to reach an agreement and to have an orderly Brexit. On the question of output gap, indeed we have an output gap working group which is working and looking at the ways to modify this common methodology. And I emphasize it's a common methodology of Member States, therefore needs agreement of Member States actually to be changed. And from what we see from the output gap working group, sometimes it's difficult, but because different Member States challenges different parts of the methodology, and sometimes it's contradicting each other. But in any case, when assessing the output gap, also from the European Commission side, we can use so-called plausibility tool and apply constrained judgment to assess member states' output gaps. And indeed, we see this tendency that the smaller the member states, the more volatile those output gap calculations are, and there is occasionally need for this constrained judgment. Well, as regards post-program surveillance, I would say it's a standard feature. It's a standard feature also of IMF programs and also of the programs where Commission is involved until, I would say, the large part of the debt has not been repaid. And that's the logic of the post-program surveillance. Then, on the questions of investment gap, this is something which we try to address with different European policies. If you look at annual growth survey, investment is a first priority. We have investment clause within Stability and Growth Pact, which allows us to adjust for member states' fiscal performance if they are increasing investment. And we are also, in context of country-specific recommendations, looking at composition of member states' budget, how growth-friendly it is, how much it prioritizes investment. So there are, I would say, different tools how we can address this investment gap. Thank you.
I will be quite short, as Valdis has said the essential. Just one point. I'm always very pleased to come to Ireland. When I go there, it's usually more to discuss about tax than about post-program surveillance, which is established by missions by the institution. And I hope that we will have the occasion to see decisive progress involving Ireland in all the important decisions that we have to take in 2018, and we just mentioned a few of them in a week from now. Blacklist of tax haven, then public CBCR, then the publicity also and transparency for the activity of intermediaries, CCCTB, which is a good project for all the European economy, etc. And so we work well with our Irish friends, and it's always a pleasure for me to get there to have a strong fight in the committee, in the Hoitas, and then to have a beer with the MPs who told me all the bad things they think about the policy I'm proposing. As far as post-program surveillance is concerned, well, Valdis said what the rules are. The rules is that until 75% of the debt is repaid, there is supposed to be post-program surveillance. That's the rules. And this Commission is there to implement the rules. Are the rules fair? Is it logical that in this situation we have post-program surveillance for years and years? One can ask the question, frankly speaking. But the point is that post-program surveillance is not so bad for Ireland, because your performance, as far as growth forecast is concerned, is brilliant. 5.1 in 2016, 4.8 in 17, 3.9 in 18, and 3.1 in 19. Obviously, Ireland is among the leaders on growth, and we are very pleased to say that. So, for me, it's always a pleasure to intervene in the Eurogroup to say that we had a mission in Ireland that was a complete success, that things are going well, etc., etc. So you have nothing to fear from it, even if I can understand that at one moment one is fed up with post-program surveillance when the essential work has been done. And, well, that's about those who established the rules. We are there to implement the rules. About Brexit, so far the impact of the UK leave vote on the Irish economy has been mainly felt through the depreciation of sterling against the euro. This contributed to weaker than expected inflation as imports of goods from the UK lowered the prices for Irish consumers. Given the ongoing negotiation on the terms of the UK's withdrawal from the EU, our projections for 2018 are based on a purely technical assumption of status quo in terms of trading relationship between the EU27 and the UK. This is for forecasting purposes only, and it has no bearing on the talk underway in the context of the Article 50 process. And you must understand why we've done that. We needed to have a forecast, but you didn't want to have a forecast that can be interpreted as a political position. As a very open economy, Ireland is exposed to adverse shocks in the global economy due to the weight of multinationals in the Irish GDP. The economy is also sensitive to changes in the international taxation regimes and trade policies in some countries, not to mention another country, which is the United States of America.
And even CCCTB.
CCCTB is good for Ireland. We have some problems to solve. We will do that, and I'm sure that we will adopt that, all of us together.